දවස් 30ක්ම unlimited Netflix බලන්න. unlimited data pack එකක් මුළු පවුලටම unlimited fun එකක් අරගන්න. අදම active කරගන්න.
ලෙන්ගතුකම වැඩි කරගන්න ලව්ජු රුපියල් 50ට අඩු කළා.
මාමේ එන්න අපිට එකක් බොමු.
Tonight, bad strain. COVID-19 cases surged past the 9,000 mark with 335 new cases today as Army Commander reminds the public that current strain more virulent than before. Locked down or locked up, Western Province comes under curfew from midnight tonight as police warn those violating provincial travel will be dealt with harshly. New rules, new times. 20th Amendment becomes the country's law after Speaker of Parliament gives it his signature and seal of approval. Fighting together, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa in his Miladun-Nabi message calls on the Muslim community to join in the battle against extremism in accordance to the teachings of the Holy Prophet. All this and much more coming up on this Thursday, the 29th of October 2020.
Nava Sunlight Sakura. Then Dikukal Pavatina Sakura Mal Suandin.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Shanella Fernando in your top stories for tonight. The number of COVID-19 patients reported in Sri Lanka exceeded the 9,000 mark, with over half of them detected in the past 3 weeks, following the re-emergence of infections within the country. Home to over 6 million people, the Western Province will go into a state of lockdown from midnight today until 5 a.m. on Monday, the 2nd of November. Meanwhile, Army Commander Lieutenant General Shavindra Silva says that the current strain of the virus might be more virulent than the previous, while the Government Medical Officers Association warns that another cluster similar to Paliagoda could leave the country in a very difficult situation. 335 fresh cases of coronavirus COVID-19 were detected from the country yesterday. Of them, 308 are from the Minuwangoda cluster and the Paliagoda sub-cluster, while the remaining 27 are from quarantine centres. The highest number of infections reported yesterday were from the Colombo district. This amounted to 237 patients.
Yesterday, we have identified 335 new COVID-19 cases. Majority are from the Colombo Municipal Council area, and we observe that some of these cases are coming from the highly congested flat residencies. We observe that people in these places, even during the curfew time, they are not adhering to the public health measures. They are mixing together and going to different houses and also not adhering to other hygienic measures. This is very alarming situation. This may cause that the disease more and more is spreading in these areas. So because of that, we kindly request from all the people to adhere to the public health measures.
The number of infections reported from the Gampaha district yesterday stood at 75. In addition, 10 cases were detected from the district of Kalutara, 4 each from the districts of Kurunegala and Nuwara, 3 from Hambantota and 1 each from Galle and Puttlam. Accordingly, the number of infections emerging from the Minuwangoda and Paliagoda COVID-19 clusters have increased to 5,731. 1,041 of them are employees of the Minuwangoda garment factory and the other 4,690 are their associates. 661 patients attached to the Minuwangoda cluster have now returned to their daily lives following complete recoveries. Out of the 5,731 cases emerging from the Minuwangoda and Paliagoda clusters, the highest number of cases were reported from the Gampaha district, which amounts to 2,908. The district with the second highest number of infections is Colombo, with 1,584 confirmed cases. 189 cases have been reported from the Kalutara district, while the district of Kurunegala has 114. Out of the cases reported from the Minuangoda and Paliagoda clusters, 52 cases were detected from the Gaul district, 38 from Kegol, 29 from the Putlam district, 28 from Batiklo and 26 from the Nuwara district, as well as 23 from the district of Kandy. Ratnapura so far has recorded 18 cases from the country's newest clusters, 15 from the Ampara district, 13 from Vaunia, 10 confirmed from the Matale district and 9 each from Mana and Matara. According to health officials, 8 cases have been reported from the districts of Trincomalee and Badulla, 4 cases have been confirmed from the Jaffna district and 3 cases each from Anuradhapura, Polonnaruwa, Hambantota and Monaragala districts. The Kilinochchi and Mullaitivu districts, however, are yet to report cases of COVID-19. With today's additions, the total number of COVID-19 virus infections in the country rose to 9,619. 4,142 of them have fully recovered and been discharged from hospitals. The number of active cases, however, exceeded the 5,000 mark, leaving the number of patients under treatment at 5,458.
දැන් මේ මොහොතේදී අපිට සක්‍රිය වෙච්ච රෝගී උපපොකුරු කිහිපයක් තියෙනවා. මුලින් පටන් ගත්තේ මිනුවන්ගොඩ පොකුර, ඊට පස්සේ කොළඹ ඩොක්යාඩ් ආයතනයේ ආශ්‍රිතව ඊගාවට මතුගම ප්‍රදේශයේ අගලවත්ත ප්‍රදේශයේ පොකුරු නිර්මාණය වුණා. කුලියාපිටිය ප්‍රදේශයේ පොකුරක් නිර්මාණය වුණා. කහතුඩුව ප්‍රදේශයේ දැන් යම් අවදානමක් මතුවලා තියෙනවා. මේ විදිහට රෝගී උපපොකුරු ගණනාවක් නිර්මාණය වෙමින් තියෙනවා. වඩා භයානක වෙන්නේ පෑලියගොඩ පොකුර වගේ පොකුරක් හදිස්සියෙම විහි වුණොත් එහෙම ඊටාම අපහසු තත්යකට මුළු රටම පත් වෙනවා සෞඛ්‍ය පද්ධතිය ආරක්ෂක අංශය ඇතුළුව. ඒ නිසා ජාතික වගකීමක් තියෙනවා ඒ පොකුරු නිර්මාණය වෙන තැනට වැඩ කටයුතු නොකිරීම වගේම අර පොකුරු අවසන් කිරීම සඳහා අවශ්‍ය කරන උපරිම ක්‍රියාමාර්ග වලට යන එක.
Also, 2 women who were being quarantined in the Bhagavantalav area have tested positive for COVID-19. The husband of one of the women, who is an associate of the Paliagoda Fish Market subcluster, was previously diagnosed with COVID-19. Meanwhile, 7 members of the Board of Trustees, including the chief priest of a temple in the area frequented by the woman, were directed to self-quarantine. In the meantime, the wife, daughter and father of a resident of Haputale in Bandaravela, who was infected with COVID-19 while working at the Colombo dockyard, have tested positive for the virus. Health authorities decided to direct 221 people quarantined at the Brandix facility in Pinvala to the quarantine centre in Salava today. The group, however, denied moving to Salava facility, saying that they will not leave their current location until the results of their second PCR tests arrive. Shortly after, 25 among them was confirmed to have been infected with the virus. In a separate incident, a 25-year-old woman living in the area of Kudavella in Tangol has contracted COVID-19. She was hospitalized along with her 21-day-old infant. Meanwhile, a tense situation arose in the Ranmutugal area in Kadavata when authorities arrived to hospitalize an infected woman. The heated situation arose between the police officers and the son of the infected woman. In the midst of the protest, however, measures were taken to transport the patient to a hospital. A police constable who was on duty at the Paliagoda Fish Market Complex checkpoint has also been infected with the virus. Elsewhere, 15 officers of the Colombo Crimes Division have tested positive for the coronavirus. In Kalutara, an SCF officer who was quarantined at the police training college has also contracted the virus.
මෙහිදී විශේෂම කිව යුතුයි මෙවර තිබෙන මේ COVID-19 පසුගිය අවස්ථාවත් එක්ක යම්කිසි වෙනස්කමක් දකිනවා. මේක ඊටාම ශීඝ්‍ර ලෙස පැතිරෙන තත්ත්වයක් තිබෙනවා. ඒක හින්දාම තමයි මේ වන විට අපගේ ශ්‍රී ජයවර්ධනපුර විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයෙන් මිනුවන්ගොඩ පොකුර, එවැගේම පෑලියගොඩ පොකුර සහ කන්දල්කාඩු අපේ පරණ මේ තුන සම්බන්ධයෙන් මේ වෛරස සම්බන්ධයෙන් විශේෂ පරීක්ෂණයක් මේ අවස්ථාවේ සිදු වෙමින් පවතිනවා.
Safeguard hand sanitizer නවතම නිෂ්පාදන පෙළ නිරෝගීමත් දිවියකට.
Quarantine curfew will be imposed in the western province from midnight today to prevent any further spread of COVID-19 between provinces. Accordingly, the police warned the public that anyone who violates this rule will be dealt with according to the rule of the law.
The government announced yesterday that the quarantine curfew covering the western province will be imposed from midnight today as a preventive measure to curb the spread of COVID-19. The curfew will be lifted at 5 a.m. on Monday, the 2nd of November.
බස්නාහිර පළාතෙන් වෙනත් පළාත් වලට පැතිරීම වළක්වා ගැනීමේ ක්‍රමවේදයක් නිකන් ප්‍රොඇක්ටිව් ක්‍රමවේදයක් යනු තමයි මේ තත්ත්වය අපි ඇති කරලා තිබෙන්නේ. මෙහිදී තාමත් වැදගත් වෙනවා මේ සංසරණය කියන එක. දැන් කොළඹ කට්ටිය මේ වෙන පළාත් වලට නිරෝධායන දිරින් තියෙනවා තිබෙනවා නම් මේ යාමේ හැකියාවක් තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම විශේෂයෙන්ම මේ සතියන්තයේදී මේ කාරණා සියල්ලක්ම හේතු කොටගෙන තමයි විශේෂයෙන්ම අනිකුත් ප්‍රදේශවල ජනතාවගේ ආරක්ෂාව වෙනුවෙන් සහ මේ බස්නාහිර පළාතේ ඉන්න ජනතාවගේ ආරක්ෂාව වෙනුවෙන් තමයි මේ ආකාරයෙන් නිරෝධායන ඇඳිරි නීතියක් පවත්වන්න යෙදුනේ.
Following the government's curfew announcement, pharmacies and outlets providing essential food items were open during the day for the public to replenish their essential supplies. In the meantime, the isolation of several villages in Kalutara was lifted today. However, the Badugama Navajanapade village will remain under isolation until further notice. Although the isolation was lifted in these areas, they will still remain under quarantine curfew until Monday. As the curfew will be in effect from midnight, the police stated that vehicles entering and leaving the province will be subjected to strict inspection.
අද රාත්‍රී 12 සිට ඇඳිරි නීතිය ප්‍රකාශන පත් කරන බව සඳහන් කළා. එසේ සඳහන් කළේ සිකුරාදා දිනයේදී කොළඹින් පිටතට යාමට යම් යම් පිරිස් චාරිකා සංවිධානය කර තිබූ බවට ලැබිච්ච තොරතුරු නිසා. කොළඹින් පිටතට යම් පිරිසක් යනවා නම් ඒ අය සමහර විට යන්නේ මේ රෝගයත් රැගෙන වෙන්නට පුළුවන්. මොකද ඔවුන් සමහර විට දන්නේ නැහැ ඔවුන් ආසාදිතින් බව. ඒ නිසා බස්නාහිර පළාතෙන් පිටතට කිසිවෙකුට යාමට අවසර ලැබෙන්නේ නැහැ. අධිවේගී මාර්ගයටත් මේ රීතිය ඒ ආකාරයටම බලපානවා. යම් කිසි කෙනෙක් එම රීතිය වලට නියෝගවලට පටහැනිව කටයුතු කරනවා නම් එයාට නිරෝධායන සහ රෝග වැළැක්වීමේ ආරක්ෂා පනත යටතේ කටයුතු කිරීමට හැකියාවක් තිබෙනවා. ඒ තැනැත්තන් අත්අඩංගුවට ගන්න පුළුවන්, ඒ වාහන පොලිස් භාරයට ගන්න පුළුවන්. එවැනි අවස්ථාවකදී බරපතල වැඩ ඇතිව මාස 6ක සිරදඬුවමක් සහ රුපියල් 10000ක දඩයක් සහ ඒ දෙකටම යටත් කිරීමේ හැකියාවක් අධිකරණයට තියෙනවා.
In other developments, the new Director General of Health Services, Dr. Asela Gunawardana, assumed duties at the Ministry of Health this morning. In the meantime, the Ministry of Health recently published restrictive measures that need to be adhered to at workplaces in the Western Province. Accordingly, one person from each household is allowed to visit pharmacies, supermarkets and groceries. Government ministries and departments can function with a minimum number of employees decided by the head of the institution. Banks and other financial institutions will also be allowed to operate with a limited staff. Furthermore, industries under the BOI, including the apparel industry and plantation sector, export-oriented industries and agricultural industries can operate under the safety guidelines. What's more, public transport, communication services, postal and courier services, and fuel stations can also operate accordingly. The statement also says that universities and educational institutions and construction sites can conduct their activities in adherence to safety protocols. Further, funerals must be conducted in a short time as possible with a limited number of guests. Weddings too will have restrictions on attendees with only 50% of the seating capacity of reception halls allowed. The hospitality industry will be able to operate in adherence to the safety protocols, but in-house dining will not be allowed. However, open markets, economic centers, spas and beauty salons must be closed until further notice. Meanwhile, releasing a statement, the Ministry of Finance said that the Saubhagya COVID-19 loan scheme provided by the government has so far provided loan facilities worth at least 1.77 billion rupees to 61,907 businesses affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. The ministry also stated that a sum of 50 billion rupees was previously allocated for the purpose. However, it has now increased up to 150 billion rupees. Meanwhile, the chairman of the Ceylon Petroleum Storage Terminals, Mohammad Uwais Mohammad, requested the public not to panic since sufficient fuel stocks are available in the country.
තොගගබඩා පර්යන්තයන් තියෙනවා රට වටේ 11ක්. ඒවා සියලු දේ 180කට වඩා පුරවලා තියන් ඉන්නවා. ඊට අමතරව ලංකාවේ ඕනෑම තැනකින් ඉන්ධන ඇනවුමක් ලැබුණොතින් ඒවා පැය 24ක් තුල අපි ලබා දීමේ වැඩසටහනක් මේ මොහොතේ යොදාගෙන තියෙනවා. ඒ හින්දා කිසිම බියක් ඇති කරගන්න එපයි කියලා කාරුණිකව මහ ජනතාවගෙන් ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා.
More news on the other side of this break. Stay tuned.
Ceylon Bank, the bank with a heart.
Welcome back in more news. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa today called on the Muslim community to join hands in order to defeat extremism in the country. The president appealed to the people to eliminate hatred and suspicion among each other and live according to the qualities Prophet Muhammad preached. These comments were made in a special message released to commemorate the Milad-un-Nabi festival today that celebrates the birth of the Prophet Muhammad.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, in his message to the Muslim community celebrating Milad-un-Nabi, says that the virtues learned from the character of the Prophet must be socialized to achieve mutual prosperity, reconciliation among different ethnic groups and for the common good. Sri Lankan Muslims today celebrate the birthday of the Prophet Muhammad in solidarity with the Muslim brethren around the world. The President said, adding that it is his view that ideals of sacrifice that the Prophet made for the sake of humanity lays the foundation for a better and more developed society. The President appealed to people to eliminate hatred and suspicion among each other and live with the qualities that Prophet Muhammad preached. The President added that today, with humanity facing an enormous challenge in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic spreading across the globe, causing unprecedented hardships, living while giving priority to religious beliefs at a time of distress like this brings solace to the mind. The President stated that he is hopeful that when the world celebrates the birth of the Prophet, Muslims will join hands with determination to defeat all forms of extremism and create a better society, keeping in line with the values he professed. Quote, I wish a happy Miladun Nabi to the Sri Lankan Muslim community as well as to the Muslims around the world, unquote, the President concluded.
The 20th Amendment to the Constitution was signed today by the Speaker of the Parliament, Mahinda Yapabewardena, thus making it the law of the land. In the meantime, Chief Opposition Whip Lakshman Kiriyalla has requested the Speaker to allocate 9 seats to members of the Samagi Jana Balawege who were ousted from the party for voting in favour of the 20th Amendment. He requested that they be provided seating with the government. However, Minister Vimal Weerawansa says that the government will not be accepting them into their ranks.
Secretary General of the Parliament Dhammika Dissanayake announced that the 20th Amendment to the Constitution was signed today by the Speaker of the Parliament, Mahinda Yapabewardena, at 11:30 am. Deputy Secretary General and Chief of Staff Neil Indawala was also present at the occasion. Accordingly, the 20th Amendment will now become the law of the country from today. Thereby, the President is now able to appoint the Chief Justice, Justices of the Supreme Court, the Chairman and Judges of the Court of Appeal, the Attorney General, the Inspector General of Police, the Auditor General, and the Ombudsman, while being subjected to parliamentary oversight. The provision in the 19th Amendment requiring the President to obtain advice from the Prime Minister in order to appoint the Cabinet has been repealed. As such, the President can now appoint a Prime Minister and the Cabinet at his discretion. Further, the President also has the ability to retain a ministry under his purview. Under the 20th Amendment, the Election Commission that once comprised of 3 members has been amended to increase the number to 5 members, while also allowing the President to appoint its members and its chairman. The provision under the 19th Amendment, which states that a new parliament cannot be dissolved until 4.5 years after its election, has been amended, allowing the President to dissolve it after 2.5 years. Meanwhile, the Constitutional Council responsible for providing recommendations to the President on appointments to any of the independent commissions has been replaced with a Parliamentary Council. Dual citizens will now not have any restrictions in taking part at the presidential and parliamentary election as well. However, the provisions under the 19th Amendment limiting the presidential term to 5 years with a maximum of 2 terms, while also stipulating a maximum number of cabinet ministers at 30 and the number of deputy ministers at 40, has not changed. In addition, the 20th Amendment does not include any proposals that require a referendum to pass. Meanwhile, the Parliament will convene on the 3rd of November for a 3-hour parliamentary session. In the meantime, Chief Opposition Whip Lakshman Kiriyalla, in a letter to the Speaker, requested for seating to be allocated for 9 members of the Samagi Jana Balawege who voted in favour for the 20th Amendment in the government ranks. These are MPs Derana Gamage, A. Aravind Kumar, Ishaq Rahman, Faisal Kazim, HMM Hariz, MS Tawfiq, Nazir Ahmad, Ali Sabri Rahim and SMMM Musharraf.
We'll return after this short commercial break. Don't go away. Welcome back. The visit of U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has been subjected to intense criticism by opposition MPs who accused the government of going against its principles by engaging with him. However, Government Minister Mahinda Amaravira stated that no harm can result from hearing out the offers and signing any such agreements if they are beneficial to the country. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's official visit to Sri Lanka came amid intense criticism from the opposition. A protest was also staged outside the U.S. Embassy in Colombo by the Janata Vimukti Peramuna against his visit. However, the US Secretary of State, who remained in Sri Lanka for only a few hours, left for the Maldives after holding discussions with President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Foreign Minister Dinesh Gunawardena yesterday. After meeting with the Maldivian leadership, he then took a flight to Indonesia for similar discussions with the country's government. Meanwhile, many views were expressed in the political arena today regarding the visit of the US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to Sri Lanka.
ඇමරිකාව එපා කිව්වේ නැහැ. හැබැයි දැන් ඇමරිකාව එපා කියපු උදය ගම්මන්පිල මහත්තයා, විමල් වීරවංශ මහත්තයා, එතනින් ගියාපුවම අපේ සීතනෝන හොයාගන්නත් නැහැ. ඇමරිකාවේ රාජ්‍ය ලේකම්වරයා පොම්පේ මහත්මයා ලංකාවට එනකොට අපි අහනවා විමල් වීරවංශ මහත්තයා කෝ?
අපි තාම පැහැදිලිව දන්නවා මයික් පොම්පියෝ නෙවෙයි ඊට වඩා ලොක්ෙක් මේ රටට ආවත් ඒ ඕන ලොක්කෙකුට මේ රටේ ගෞරවය රැකගෙන මේ රටේ අභිමානය රැකගෙන අවශ්‍ය ගනුදෙනුව කරන්න පුළුවන් නායකත්වයක් මේ රටේ අද අපි බලයට ගෙනල්ලා තියෙනවා. එහෙම නායකත්වයක් ඉන්න වෙලාවක එන්නේ කවුරු වුණත් ඒ එන කෙනාට ඕන විදියට වැඩේ වෙයි කියලා හිතන්න අපිට උවමනාවක් නැහැ. හැබැයි ඔය කලබල වෙච්ච මහත්තුරු එදා රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහගේ ආණ්ඩුව වෙලාවේ ඇමරිකානු රාජ්‍ය ලේකම් ජෝන් කෙරි ආවා. හීන් කෙඳිරියක්වත් නැගුවේ නැහැ. සමන්තා පවෙල් වෙනකොට හීන් කෙඳිරියක්වත් නැගුවේ නැහැ. ඒගොල්ලෝ බලාගෙන හිටියා මිලේනියම් චැලෙන්ජ් කෝපරේෂන් ගිවිසුමට අස්සම් කරයි. 103 මයික් පිම්පියෝ ටික එදා MCC මූලික ගිවිසුම හොර රහස්‍යම අස්සම් කරනකොට කටක් ඇරියේ නැහැ. අරලියගහ මන්දිරය ඇතුළේ MCC කාර්යාලය පවත්වාගෙන යනකොට අඩු ගානේ අපි මේ ගැන පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ ප්‍රශ්න කරනකොට සාගර රත්නායකලා බොරු උත්තර දීලා මග ඇරනකොට වචනකින්වත් සහයෝගයක් දුන්නේ නැහැ. රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහගේ ආණ්ඩුවක් නම් හා පොම්පියෝ හා ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂගේ ආණ්ඩුවක් නම් අම්මෝ පොම්පියෝ මාර භයානක. ඕනම රටක ඉන්න පාලකයාගේ හැටියට තමයි ලෝක බලවතා වුණත් හැසිරෙන්නේ. ඕක අපි දන්න හන්ද තමයි පොම්පියෝ එනකොට අපිට කලබල වෙන්න හේතුවක් නෝනේ.
ඕන කෙනෙක්ට පුළුවන් මයික් එකක් ඉස්සරහට කියලා කාට හරි බනින්න. ඇමරිකාවට බයින්න කියන්න සොල්දාදු ඇවිල්ලා අපේ තරුණියෝ දූෂණය කරන්න එනවා. හරි ලේසි කියන්න. රට මැද්දෙන් වැටක් ගහනවා. හැබැයි රාජ්‍ය පාලනය කරන්න බෑ එහෙම. ජනාධිපතිතුමා තීරණ කිහිපයක් ගන්න ඕනේ. එක රටක හොඳ කියන්නයි අනිත් රටේ වැරදි කියන්නයි ගිහිල්ලා අන්තිමට මොකද අපිට වෙන්නේ? අන්තිමට අපේ රට කුඩු පට්ටම් වෙන තැනකට වැටෙනවා.
අපිට ඇමරිකාවත් එක්ක පෞද්ගලික තරහක් නැහැ. අපි අභියෝගයට ලක් කරේ ගිවිසුමේ තිබුණු රටට අහිතකර වගන්තිවලට. එතකොට අපේ ආණ්ඩුව සමයේ MCC නමින් ප්‍රධානයක් ලබා දෙන්න කැමතියි කියන දේ කිව්වම ඒ ප්‍රධානය කියලා සාකච්ඡා කරන්න සූදානම් කියලා තිනු. ඉන් එහාට දෙයක් කියලා නැහැ. රටේ ආරක්ෂාවට තර්ජනයක් වෙන ආකාරයේ ව්‍යාපෘතියක් අපේ ආණ්ඩුව සමය යෝජනා වෙලා නැහැ. එහෙම වුණා කියනවා නම් ඒක බොරුවක්.
සමාජ මාධ්‍ය ජාලාවල තියෙන ආකාරයේ කතාවකට නෙමෙයි යාව. සමහර අය කිව්වා ඇමරිකාවට MCC ගිවිසුම ගැන කතා කරන්න ආවා. සෝපා ගැන කතා කරන්න ආවා. මේ වෙනම ඉඩම් වෙන් කරගන්න ආවා. හැම දෙයකට ආවා නෙමෙයි කියන එක මං පැහැදිලිව කියන්න කැමතියි. ඒ නිසා ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ එහෙම මේ වතාවේවත් කිසිදු ආකාරයක බලපෑමක් නැහැ. ඒක ගන්නවද නැද්ද කියන එක අපේ රජයයි තීන්දුව කරන්න ඕනේ. ඉතින් රජය දැන් මේ වෙනකොට කමිටුවක් පත් කරා. කමිටුව වාර්තාවක් දීලා තියෙනවා. ඒ පිළිබඳව අධීක්ෂණය කරනවා, අවධානය යොමු කරනවා. රටට අහිතකර කිසිම දෙයක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඒක මට වගකීමෙන් කියන්න පුළුවන්. හොරට මේ ගිවිසුම අස්සම් වෙන්නෙත් නැහැ. MCC ගිවිසුමද තව එකක්ද කියන එක නෙමෙයි අපිට වැදගත් වෙන්නේ. හොඳ දෙයක් නම් අපි කරාට ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ.
President of the Sri Lanka-China Friendship Association, Attorney at Law Ananda Gunatilaka says that South Asian nations must resist the interference of powers who try to fish in the Indian Ocean and interfere in countries' geopolitical existence. He made these comments through a media release where he praised the stance taken by the president to remain neutral and stay true to its non-aligned foreign policy.
President of the Sri Lanka-China Friendship Association, Attorney at Law Ananda Gunatilaka, yesterday praised the government for reiterating Sri Lanka's stance on remaining true to its non-aligned policy, promising to uphold the country's sovereignty. The president of the SLCFA said that the United States has been engaged in a campaign of disinformation about Sri Lanka's relationship with China, with statements alluding that Sri Lanka was caught in China's debt trap. During the discussions held between Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, President Rajapaksa refuted these claims, stating that China had assisted in the development of the country's infrastructure since the end of the separatist war in May 2009 and that Sri Lanka had not been caught in a debt trap as a result. The SLCFA president has also stated that the organization has always emphasized that Sri Lanka is a non-aligned country with a similarly calibrated foreign policy that has served the country well in the past in avoiding becoming any nation's strategic partner. Gunatilaka added that the country must resist attempts by imperialistic and expansionist nations to bring the country into their sphere of influence. He added that the Sri Lanka-China Friendship Association is conscious of the unholy alliance of USA, India and 2 other countries under the guise of safeguarding the ocean around our country. He added that the Sri Lanka-China Friendship Association is conscious of the unholy alliance of USA, India and 2 other countries under the guise of safeguarding the ocean around the country. He then said that though neighbouring South Asian nations are constantly faced with their own regional oceanic issues, Sri Lanka must resist interference from various distant powers who try to fish in the troubled Indian Ocean and intrude into Sri Lanka's geopolitical existence.
With that, we wrap up tonight's edition of First at 9. Thank you for joining. I'm Shanella Fernando. Have a good night.